When something fundamentally important happens in the life of a nation, everybody in the nation do not usually know that something of cosmic proportions happened. And I say this in respect of the unique coming together of the Igbo and the Jewish peoples recently. I am referring to the ruling by the Bedin constituted by Obadiah Alliance that the Igbo people are descendants of the Israelites. No doubt, the Igbo people and the Jewish people have been relating, but not as brothers, not as brethren, not as kinsfolks. Prior to Biafra and its destruction, and the destruction of millions of Igbos, the eastern region of Nigeria, which was Igbo-led, viewed the Israelis in Nigeria as part and parcel of that region. So there had been relationships, but the relationship then was like relationship, well, I have to be very careful now. The Igbos thought the Jews were their brothers. We are still trying to think exactly about what the Jews thought the Igbos were. But definitely the Igbos felt that the Jews were their brothers. But what happened in 2022 is significantly different. The Igbos in question, represented by Omen and the defenders, and the Jews in question, represented by Obadiah Alliance, knew that the Igbos and the Jews were one family. This is a matter of cosmic importance. And even though most Jews and most Igbos do not know that this is very important, it has to go into history so that if the people don't recognize what is going on today, 500 years, 1,000 years from now, when they read about it, they would view it the way we regard the exploits, the activities of our great prophets that we are reading about thousands of years after the events occurred. Just this last week, I noted that Igbos and Jews need each other. They need each other completely. The Jews need the Igbos to begin to gradually, slowly go back to the biblical culture of the Israelites, which the Igbos retained more than the Jews retained. The Igbos have been together for thousands of years with the culture of the Bible. I can illustrate, because without illustrations, I'll be misunderstood. When the Hebrew Bible says he died in the face of the Father, I believe that only the Igbo may understand what the Hebrew Bible is saying. Because till date among the Igbos, if somebody dies while the father is still alive, that person loses that branch of the family loses the right of the first son. If the first son of a man dies when that man is still alive, that first son that died loses the right of the first son. In other words, his son does not become the first son of that family after the grandfather died. So I noted that Igbos would help the Jewish people to bridge that gap. I'm not an expert on Judaism, but I know enough to understand that when Jews went into exile, they had to try as much as possible to retain the past, but they also had to bring in to create some traditions to enable them to cope with exile. While on the other hand, the Igbos have to learn from the Jews basic survival skills to even begin to take themselves seriously. Igbos don't take themselves seriously today. Jews survived in the cauldron called Europe, so they have a lot to teach to the Igbos about survival, about taking themselves seriously. In Africa, with its beautiful climate, people did not have to be hard to survive. So, to even take omenala seriously, Igbos have to look at Jews, study how they survived, and then study how they build communities. So both communities need each other. And we'll now talk about what I'm even learning myself. A few years ago, I learned that I have Levitic origins, definitely from my mother's side. What was the job of the Levites in Israel? They were the medicine men. They were the dibia. If an Israelite was sick, that Israelite was commanded to meet the priest. My mother's kinsmen, the family my mother came from, everybody in that family was a priest and a dibia. These were Levites that became so embedded among Israelites, at a stage they lost their connection to Nri, the chief community, the chief settlement of the Levites. And from my father's side, we accommodated Levim again, people who still retained links to Nri. We accommodated them after we had become Dayan. But instructively, a son of one of the premier anthropologists in Africa, an Igbo, brought out a list where the father mentioned the communities that that had connections to Nri. My Igbo Mozobo was in that list. So, while I have Levitic connections from my mother's side, I might not only have Israelite connections from my father's side, but Levitic connections too. And recently, last week, Dr. Rabbi Hakam Yehonatan Elazar the Mota, the leader of the rabbinical court, that said enough of this denial, enough of this injustice, these people are our brothers. The guy that led the court that gave this ruling told me what shocked me. He told me a characteristic of the Levites. I still haven't found any member of my family that does not have that characteristic. So what are we saying? Igbos and Jews, you may not know that you need one another, but you need one another. And the earlier you embrace one another, the better. Because when Igbos, Jews, Samaritans, Karaites come together, what are we going to have? The Israelite milieu. It will be different from every milieu we have experienced in the world. Trust me, I know enough about world history to know that we have not experienced the Israelite milieu. The other milieus brought a lot of progress, brought a lot of retrogression. And I will not completely blame the people that were behind these civilizations. They gave the world what they knew. But what God gave the Israelites are what the world needs to be turned into paradise again. And Jews, you alone cannot do the job. Igbos, you alone cannot do the job. Samaritans, you alone cannot do the job. Karaites, you alone cannot do the job. All of you have to come together to do the job. When you are like this, the job will be done. Thank you.